London, December 2006. A final check is signed. A debt is paid, but the man signing that paper doesn't see the ghost standing behind him. He doesn't see Winston Churchill in 1940 staring at a map of a starving island. He doesn't see John Maynard Keynes in 1946, his heart failing him in a Washington hotel room. This isn't just a story about money. This is a story about the moment the world's greatest empire realized it had been outmaneuvered by its best friend. This is the story of how Britain won the war but lost everything else. Imagine being Churchill. You've stood alone against the darkness of Nazi Germany for a year. You've inspired your people to fight on the beaches and in the streets, but then you walk into your office and your advisors tell you the truth. Prime Minister, we are out of gold. We are out of dollars. By next month, we won't be able to buy bread for our people. That was the reality of December 1940. Britain was a moral giant but an economic pygmy. Churchill turned to President Roosevelt, his great friend. But friendship in geopolitics is a luxury. Roosevelt's administration saw an opportunity. They didn't want Germany to win, but they also didn't want the British Empire to stay on top. They wanted a new world order, and in that world the American dollar would be king. So they offered Lend-Lease. It was marketed as the arsenal of democracy, a noble gift to save Western civilization. But it came with a price tag that would take 60 years to pay off. The Americans sent auditors, not soldiers but accountants. They went through Britain's books with a cold, clinical eye. They forced the British government to seize private companies from their own citizens and sell them to Wall Street for pennies on the dollar. They took the gold. They took the Caribbean bases. They even took the imperial preference trade system, the very thing that made the empire an empire. Churchill reportedly wept when he realized the terms he had to sign. He knew he wasn't just saving Britain, he was selling it. The most tragic figure in this story is John Maynard Keynes. He was arguably the greatest economic mind of the 20th century. In 1945, he traveled to Washington, frail and dying, to argue for a grant of justice. He believed that because Britain had bankrupted itself saving the world, America should provide a gift to help them rebuild. He was met with silence. The war was over, and America no longer needed a strong Britain. They wanted a debtor. Keynes was forced to accept a loan with poison pill conditions. He knew the requirement to make the pound convertible would destroy the British economy. He fought it in every meeting until his doctors warned him his heart couldn't take the stress. He died just months before the crisis he predicted came true. In 1947, the pound collapsed. Britain had to withdraw from Greece and Turkey, handing the keys of global power to the United States. The British century ended not with a bang, but with a devalued currency and a telegram to the State Department saying, "We can't afford to be a superpower anymore." When you look at the total wealth transfer, $450 billion, it's hard to wrap your head around it. That is more than the cost of 2 Marshall Plans. While the rest of Europe was being rebuilt by American money, Britain was being stripped by it. It's a bitter irony. The country that stood alone against Hitler ended up paying a higher price than the countries that surrendered. This story matters today because the foreclosure of the British Empire wasn't an isolated event. It was the birth of the system we all live in now. The Bretton Woods system, the IMF, the World Bank, these are the institutions that were forged in the fire of Britain's bankruptcy. They use the same debt traps, the same conditional loans, and the same asset stripping on developing nations every single day. So I want to ask you, if you were Churchill in 1941, would you have signed that contract? Would you have sacrificed your country's future to save its present? And looking at the world today, do you see aid from big nations as a helping hand, or as a garden hose that comes with a 99-year lease on your soul? The history of 1940 to 2006 isn't just about Britain. It's about how power works in a world governed by debt. If you want to see how this same mechanism is being used right now to shape the 21st century, make sure you're subscribed. The empire may have changed, but the playbook remains the same.